You ever have one of those days where you're just trying to park your car, mind your business, and suddenly you're the villain in someone else's soap opera? That's exactly what happened to me when I pulled into a spot on a quiet suburban street. What I thought was just a regular parking space. I had no idea I was stepping straight into a Karen's territory. Not even 5 minutes after I locked my car, this woman comes storming out of her house, yelling that I was in her spot. I thought she was just being dramatic, until I came back later and found my tires completely slashed asterisk. At first, I was in total shock. Who does something like that over a parking space? But here's where it gets wild. The car I was driving. It wasn't even mine. It belonged to my cousin, who just so happens to be the police chief. Yeah, that police chief. Turns out, Karen picked the wrong car to mess with, and things escalated way quicker than anyone expected. What she didn't know, and what you're about to find out, is that her little tantrum over a curbside spot was about to blow up into something a whole lot bigger. Stick around, because what happened next? Let's just say she definitely didn't see it coming. Now, let me give you a little context about Karen. She'd lived in that neighborhood for a few years, always with this sense of entitlement that rubbed everyone the wrong way. People talked about her constantly making petty complaints, about the neighbors' kids playing too loudly, about people parking too close to her driveway, and of course, about the parking space. Apparently, she had claimed this particular spot as hers for as long as anyone could remember, despite the fact that it was a public street. The audacity of it all was insane. But that wasn't even the worst part. After slashing my tires, Karen didn't just walk off like nothing had happened. No, she started smirking as she walked back into her house, like she had somehow won the situation. I stood there frozen, unsure of what to do next. I mean, I wasn't about to let someone get away with destroying my car over a parking dispute, especially when I had nothing to do with it. But there was one big problem. I didn't have any proof that it was her. Sure, there were witnesses, but they weren't exactly lining up to confront Karen. It wasn't until I called my cousin, the police chief, that things started to take a serious turn. He said he'd come down right away, but in the meantime, I was left standing there, wondering just how far Karen was willing to go with her obsession over a parking spot. Would she take this too far, or was she about to find out she had messed with the wrong person? As I waited by my car, I couldn't help but think about how everything was spiraling out of control. The more I replayed the scene in my head, the angrier I got. I knew Karen was known for causing trouble, but this was something else entirely. It wasn't just the act of slashing my tires. It was her attitude, the way she'd walked away as if she was untouchable. Like she had the right to destroy someone else's property over a parking spot. And what was even crazier was how nobody in the neighborhood had the guts to speak up about her behavior. Sure, they all whispered about her behind her back, but no one dared confront her. It seemed like she had everyone wrapped around her finger. By the time my cousin, the police chief, showed up, I was fuming. He could tell just by looking at my face that this wasn't going to be a small incident. I told him everything about Karen, the slashed tires, and how no one was willing to stand up to her. But he just stood there, his expression unreadable. "We'll take care of it," he said calmly. But his voice didn't sound too convincing, and I started to wonder if he was holding back something. It wasn't like him to be so composed in the face of injustice. We decided to head over to Karen's house together. I figured my cousin's badge and authority might finally put some pressure on her. But when we rang the doorbell, no one answered. We knocked again, harder this time, but still nothing. I could feel the tension in the air, like we were about to walk into something far more complicated than just a parking dispute. As we stood there on her doorstep, I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen had seen us coming. Maybe she was inside, waiting for the right moment to spin her version of the story. Or maybe, just maybe, she had already planned her next move. Whatever was going on behind that door, I wasn't sure I wanted to find out, but I had a feeling we were about to get a whole lot deeper into something far darker than just a busted tire. We waited outside Karen's door for what felt like an eternity. Every second that passed only made the tension thicker. I kept thinking, asterisk, what if she really doesn't care? What if she just gets away with it, asterisk? I tried to stay calm, but the frustration was eating me alive. It was one thing to have someone lash out over a petty reason. It was another to completely disregard the consequences. And I could tell my cousin, despite his calm demeanor, was starting to feel the pressure too. He kept his phone in his hand, as if waiting for some kind of signal, but all we got was silence. Then, without warning, the door swung open. Karen stood there, a smug smile plastered on her face. She had clearly been expecting us, and the way she looked at us, like she had already won, made my blood run cold. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice dripping with false sweetness. My cousin didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, his badge visible, and said, "We need to talk about the damage done to my cousin's car." Her smile faltered, just for a second, but then she recovered, crossing her arms as if she were in control of the situation. "Damage? I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her eyes flickering to the side. It was subtle, but I caught it. A hint of guilt, maybe. Or maybe she was just trying to play it cool. Either way, something about her behavior felt off. I could feel the air growing heavier as my cousin spoke again. "We know it was you, Karen. You're not getting away with this." For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then, she leaned in a little closer and whispered, "You really don't know what you're messing with, do you?" I froze. What did she mean by that? And why did it suddenly feel like there was so much more going on behind her words? Before I could ask, the sound of a car engine rolled down the street, and Karen's expression shifted. She quickly glanced over her shoulder, her eyes wide now. Was she worried? And why was that car speeding toward us? The question lingered in the air as the engine grew louder, and all I could do was watch, heart pounding, as the car pulled up to the curb in front of Karen's house. What was about to happen next? The car screeched to a halt just a few feet away from us, and I immediately recognized it. It was a sleek black SUV, one that I had seen parked outside Karen's house a few times before. But this time, it wasn't just any ordinary SUV, it was his car. The last person I expected to see at that moment. The man who stepped out was none other than her husband, Dave. And I'll be honest, seeing him there felt like someone just kicked the ground out from under me. Dave wasn't just any guy from the neighborhood. He was a local contractor with a reputation that made him untouchable. More than once, I'd heard rumors that he had connections, people who owed him favors, businesses who depended on him. He had this presence about him, like he knew everyone and everything, and most of us kept our distance from him for that reason. But now, here he was, stepping up to the front door with an expression that could cut glass. He barely acknowledged my cousin or me. His eyes were laser-focused on Karen. She shot him a quick glance, almost like she was expecting him, before turning back to face us. And that's when things took a dark turn. "Is there a problem here?" Dave's voice was low, but it had this edge that made my skin crawl. My cousin didn't hesitate and started to explain the situation, but Dave wasn't listening. Instead, he stepped forward, blocking us from even getting a clear shot at Karen, his posture tense. "Maybe you should leave," he said, his tone now threatening. "I'm not sure you want to go any further with this." My stomach dropped. What was he saying? It was like all the pieces were starting to fall into place, but I didn't know what kind of picture was forming. Why was Dave so quick to shut this down? Was he involved somehow, or was he just backing up his wife's actions? The last thing I expected was to feel cornered in this situation, but now I was. As I stood there, trying to figure out how to respond, I noticed something else. Karen was watching us carefully, but her eyes weren't filled with anger anymore. They looked nervous, like she was waiting for something or someone. And then it hit me. Asterisk, who was she waiting for? Asterisk. Before I could ask, the sound of another car engine rolled to life in the distance, growing louder, closer. My cousin looked over at me, his expression tightening. "We need to get out of here," he whispered. But something told me that whatever was coming was about to change everything. The engine noise grew deafening as the mysterious car sped toward us, and for a moment, it felt like the whole world had stopped moving. My cousin's grip on his phone tightened as he turned to me, his jaw clenched. "This is it," he muttered, his voice low. I didn't know what he meant by that, but I could feel the tension in the air, the kind you get just before everything explodes. As the car pulled into Karen's driveway, I finally saw who was behind the wheel. A tall, intimidating figure stepped out, a man dressed in a dark suit, his face hidden behind dark sunglasses. He moved with purpose, and as he approached the front door, I could feel the shift in the atmosphere. Both Karen and Dave immediately straightened up, their once confident stances now tense and cautious. The man didn't speak right away. Instead, he took a long, hard look at my cousin, then at me, sizing us up like we were the ones who didn't belong. For a moment, nobody moved. Then, in the most casual tone possible, he finally spoke, addressing Dave directly. "Everything's taken care of?" the man asked, his voice calm but icy. Dave nodded, but there was something off in the way he did it, almost like he was afraid to speak too loudly. That's when I started putting the pieces together. Asterisk who was this guy asterisk? The man turned to Karen, his gaze piercing. "We've covered our tracks. No one will ever find out about the little incident." His words hit like a hammer, and I could feel my heart racing. It all clicked. Karen had been playing a much bigger game than I had ever imagined. But the biggest shock came when Karen stepped forward, her smirk back in full force. "Oh, don't worry," she said sweetly. "I'm sure this'll all blow over. We handled things just fine, haven't we, honey?" That's when the man's demeanor shifted. The cool exterior cracked, and for the first time, I saw something I wasn't prepared for. Fear. His eyes darted between Karen and Dave, and I could almost see him fighting back frustration. You asterisk," he said, pointing at Karen, his voice rising. "You don't get it, do you? This wasn't just about a stupid parking space. This is much bigger than you think. You've pushed too far." My cousin stepped forward, his voice shaking but steady. "What are you talking about? What's going on here?" The man finally turned to us, his tone cold. "You really want to know? Fine. Karen didn't just slash your tires because of the parking spot. She was trying to send a message. You see, she's been using her connections to get dirt on people for years. But she went too far when she crossed the line with the wrong person. She thought she could use Dave's connections to keep things quiet, but guess what?" I felt my blood run cold as he continued. She didn't know that Dave had been secretly working with the police to keep her schemes in check. "That car you're standing next to, that's my vehicle. I'm not just some shady guy from around here. I'm an undercover investigator, and we've been watching Karen for months." I blinked in disbelief. My cousin's face mirrored my own shock, but the man wasn't done. "We've got evidence. Everything. The parking spot was just the tip of the iceberg. You've all been part of something a lot darker than any of you realized." Before I could react, Karen's face fell, her smugness evaporating. Dave's posture slumped, and for the first time, he looked like a man on the verge of losing everything. The calm, controlled facade they'd both maintained for so long was shattered in an instant. But just when it seemed like the storm was about to break wide open, the unexpected happened. The sound of a police siren echoed in the distance, growing louder, faster. And then, just like that, the man's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, his face paling. He answered it, his voice urgent.